So Don, I'm Danny Wettreich, Chairman of GreenBank. We're a merchant bank and we are very interested in the blockchain space. Blockchain was all the rage at the Nasscom, where we currently are. Two sold out sessions, yours in particular. So you've been in the blockchain space, a guru in the blockchain space for some time. How do you see the current state of play in the blockchain space?
Well, I think that we've gone beyond initial conceptualization and experimentation to some real deployments. Right now, there's kind of an odd thing happening. Is this big shiny crypto thing that's grabbed everybody's imagination with ICOs and cryptocurrencies and so on. I mean, but in the big picture, this is worth, what, $400 billion. That's like half the value of Apple, which is one company from the old internet. So, and of course, the real opportunity is not cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies have some value. You know, they're a new asset class. They're a new way of transmitting data where fiat currencies might be inappropriate. And they're also a way of achieving consensus on some blockchains, of incenting miners to validate blocks. But the real pony here is none of that. The real pony is the underlying blockchain technology. And we're now starting to see this penetrating beyond financial services into every industry.
I would agree with that, which is why we're so keen on the space ourselves. One of the points you stressed at your talk today was the trust mechanism involved in blockchain. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, the way that we achieve trust forever has been by large intermediaries. Banks, governments, credit card companies, social media companies. They perform all the business and transaction logic for every type of commerce. They identify the party, the asset, you know, that's money, that's a stock, that's a vote, that's a song, that's an identity, that's a carbon credit, that's a loyalty point or whatever. And they clear and settle these transactions. They keep records. And they're in trouble. You know, they need a lot of help. They cost too much. They're centralized. It means that they can be hacked. They slow things down. They capture our data. And enter blockchain. Now we have, for the first time ever, a global platform where people can transact and manage and store and deal with assets.
Right.
Peer-to-peer, and trust is not achieved by a middleman, it's achieved by cryptography, by collaboration, and by some very clever code, which is why my son Alex and I call it the trust protocol in our book, Blockchain Revolution. Trust is native to the medium.
But as Ronald Reagan once famously said, trust and verify. How do you verify the trust mechanism without identification built into the blockchain?
Well, that's what blockchains do, is they enable people to trust each other by verification. So I can't cheat you. You know, if you send me some money, you can't double spend it. Once it leaves you and it comes to me, you can't commit fraud with that money and re-spend it. And once I have it, I have cryptographic proof that I've got it. It's there. So,
but in terms of money, for example, as per cryptocurrency, the problems with cryptocurrency all focus on the fact that the user base is anonymous. So without identification, I don't see how cryptocurrency can ever succeed. And identification surely is also required for all other purposes of blockchain usage.
Well, you remember the beginning of our conversation, we agreed that cryptocurrencies was not what's important here.
Exactly.
So if you want to focus on an unimportant part, let's do that. That there are use cases for cryptocurrencies, and where identification is a key attribute. And it's all a question of how you design it. So when Annalie Domingo sends money from her mobile device in Toronto to her mom's device in the Philippines, it goes from her device to her mom's device with full identification and full authentication. That's the way the system is designed. And as for anonymous transactions, law enforcement, smart ones, like this stuff a lot. This is way better than cash. If you and I start you're in Colombia and I'm in Miami and we start doing a lot of transactions, somebody's going to pay attention to that. And because they can get access to the metadata, they don't know who you are, they don't know who I am, but with some work, law enforcement can find out.
But isn't it appropriate that instead of requiring governments and regulators to be proactive and identify nefarious players in the blockchain space, that if everybody was basically KYC identified, whether it be a smart contract person or a cryptocurrency transaction, then all that government has to do is go to the actual transaction and require disclosure. Whereas we're in the situation where if everything is anonymous, they have a problem with it.
But it's not all anonymous. If I want to do a transaction with Bitcoin, I'm AML, KYC, I have to, on an exchange, you know.
But the primary use of Bitcoin is not necessarily through exchanges. I mean, if I'm exchanging with you, it's nothing to do with an exchange.
No, but ultimately we need to go through some kind of exchange to do a transaction.
Not necessarily. If I have a Bitcoin and you have a wallet, we can do a transaction, bypasses the exchanges.
Yeah, but how do we get that wallet, that money onto the wallet in the first place?
Well, we can mine the coin.
Well, I just did a transaction in Bitcoin and I needed to do full KYC approval. I had to show a picture of my passport and open up my passport.
Which is an exchange,
show a picture of me with a passport. Yeah, I did it through an exchange.
Right. So what uses do you see of blockchain other than the obvious ones, you know, getting away from the cryptocurrency space?
Well, there's some little trivial applications like, say, the $64 trillion supply chain industry. You move all that to a blockchain and that's a very, very powerful thing, because rather than people, you know, passing on faxes and bills of lading and sending emails and putting paper in a little shelf in a railway car and so on, you have a shared network state of everything. Speed up the metabolism of the supply chain. You can, you know, have fewer lawyers. It reduces error rate, and all kinds of good things happen. Plus, that's just the beginning. Companies like Sweetbridge, you can actually issue tokens against your own supply chain and borrow money from yourself to invest in your supply chain. So these are kind of interesting opportunities. Supply chain is one of, well, we're doing 75 projects now at the Blockchain Research Institute looking at use cases.
What about government usage of blockchain?
Well,
how do you see that progressing?
That's a really big one, and it happens in 3 big buckets. One is governments adopting blockchain for their basic operations, and there are a lot of benefits to that. Transparency, you design it in a way that there's transparency. You design it in a way that it protects citizens. For example, land titles, huge issue here in India. You put land titles on a blockchain and nobody's going to be able to, you know, bribe some local clerk to be able to take your land title away from you. There are a lot of applications that have to do with supply chains in government, because governments are the biggest supply chains where you want to know the provenance of something, and really sort of creating a model of government as a platform whereby you can get new entities, private sector, civil society, other government agencies, citizens, self-organizing to create public value. So that's a big one. You know, Dubai, for example, has said it wants to be the first government running fully on a blockchain. The second is democracy, and we have a big crisis right now that democracy all around the world is, it's not just that you disagree with who's in power, you think the institution itself is maybe not the best one. And that's a really big problem, because I don't know of a better system than democracy. But most democracies are corrupt, not in a pejorative sense, sort of in a technical sense. The United States, politicians are not accountable to citizens, they're accountable to the big money that put them in power. So your citizens may want you to pass a law for background checks on firearms, but your big funders from the NRA saying you can't do that. So we can use blockchain to do all kinds of exciting things. You can have smart votes. And we talk about this in Blockchain Revolution, where the vote is inside a smart contract.
But if all these uses that you've described, whether they be electoral uses or social security payments to the citizens, they all require at the end of the day a recording of the data of the citizen and in some way, shape or form identification that data is correct. Without identification, how does all that work?
Well, you have identification. In fact, the notion of identity is the killer app for blockchain. The way it's going to work is right now, you know, the virtual you has all this data in it, all this transactional exhaust that you sweep up. It's got your government data and your health data and your educational data and your credit rating data and all the rest of that. And it knows more about you than you do, you know, because you can't remember what you bought a year ago or what your heartbeat was a year ago or what your exact location was a year ago and myriad other things. So the trouble is that you don't own it. You create it, but you don't own it. It's like digital feudalism, you know. They leave you with a cabbage or two, even though you grew all the vegetables. So
how do you protect that data? How's that data protected?
Well, the idea is that, and there are some great projects underway to create a virtual identity that's owned by the citizen. It's on a blockchain. It's in a black box. And so before you leave the hospital, after your x-ray, your radiology report is in your identity. And you can anonymize it and sell it. You can use that to get a second opinion or help plan your health. You can move it to another institution. You can do whatever. And that's possible for any institution across government agencies, across educational institutions, across commercial institutions. You own that data. You can use it to plan your life. And you can monetize it, anonymized or otherwise, if you want. It's your data. And the important thing is you can use it to protect your privacy. So there will be no, you know, FICO score or, you know, credit rating, because you are your FICO score, because your transactional history is in there. It's all been attested to and it's validated. So this is sort of the holy grail.
But how is that data protected from being hacked?
It's on a blockchain.
And blockchains are unhackable?
They're infinitely more secure than the computer systems that we have at, say, JP Morgan or Home Depot or Target or the CIA or the Democratic Party servers and so on. Any central server can be hacked. I won't say blockchains are unhackable, but they're a lot tougher to hack.
Okay, so you see blockchain as both a commercial and a governmental positive thing?
Yeah, I view it overall as an operating system for a new economy. And we're here in India. I mean, gee, think of the opportunity. India really benefited from this whole wave of outsourcing, but that's now declined because there's no more labor arbitrage, and market rates and the global market have brought those up. So India's now got to create new value. So where's the new value? Well, we have the first era of the internet is there, but now this whole new second era is arising, and it's even bigger. So if India can understand that and build up a new talent base, this is the engine for a whole new kind of economy.
John, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.